Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 2. I am Table for 2, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mellified and Alien Pickle. What's up, guys?
Hello. All right, Pickle doesn't want to talk today, I guess.
I'm just censoring myself from what I was about to say. I was just like, no, I'm not really
It's your boy!
It's your boy.
Dear God. Yes, we have a running inside joke about ya boy being our tagline, and I vehemently protested.
So send me an email at alienpickle@yaboy.net.
Your boy, it's your boy. We've been getting this thing off the ground pretty well. I've actually been really enjoying starting up this community and this podcast. It's actually been a lot of fun, and there's been a lot of shenanigans behind the scenes. So this has been some really cool stuff. But since episode 2, since episode 1, Mellified, you actually got Jim and I a game that we got to try out and play, which was the twin stick shooter, kind of like crab mech looking thing. It's the llama shooter.
Vicious Assault Llama Apocalypse, also known as Vala.
Turns out it's only local co-op, but we were still able to get in and play around with it and have some fun with it, and that was a pretty good time. So if you're looking for some couch co-op, that is actually a pretty good game to check out. So
it's a surprising little tech demo too, because it's 4K, it's 60 FPS on the Xbox One X at least, and it has quite a few particle effects and llama explosions and more llama explosions, and
It's got llama FX.
it does, yeah. Suck it, NVIDIA. Llama FX for life. No. So yeah, it's nothing groundbreaking, I don't suppose, but it is a fun little ridiculously over the top violent shooter, and there's some nice upgrades and stuff for your guns.
It's a lot less Jeff Minner than it needed to be.
Yeah, there's no psychedelic trippy effects or anything.
Because he made Llamatron. So you'd think like anything with llamas must have sprang forth from that.
Yeah.
Or llamas just inherently funny.
I think it's probably that llamas are just funny because they're kind of awkward looking and they spit at people, and
they're like miniature furry giraffes. It's weird.
Yeah. So is a llama different from an alpaca in that like one is poisonous and the other's not, and you have to like look at the pattern of their fur, kind of like whenever you look at a king snake.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't think that's true. I am not. This is not a nature podcast, nor are we nature experts. But I'm pretty sure that is wrong.
Okay.
Yes,
but they do spit. They spit, and it's
That's
nasty.
True.
Yeah, they do that to blind you like a cobra does.
It's interesting. Jesus, the snake thing. So
it'd be like a llama charmer.
It's interesting that like they and like camels are all, like notorious for spitting. I find that interesting. It's kind of like that. They have like that dinosaur from Jurassic Park or whatever it was. So
yeah. Well, they have the multiple stomachs like a cow does to help them break down the grasses. They have different bacteria in the different stomachs. I told you this wasn't a nature podcast, but little did you know. And so the spit is particularly like nasty because they're barfing up from one of those stomachs and using that as the.
Well, I think you have such a fascination for this, Mellified, because even your Sea of Thieves character looks like he's chewing cud, like just constantly like.
He's a bit of a ruminant of the sea. That's true.
Well, and those I'll say, remember the Sea of Thieves. You don't actually create your character; you just pick from the randomly generated ones that they give you.
Yeah, but you picked. Just saying. Anyway,
I want to play Sea of Thieves as a manatee.
The original mermaids, as
there you go.
The theory goes.
Well, cool. Well, onto the world of gaming news. Apparently, and Mellified sent us this one from The Guardian about there's a gaping hole in our knowledge. The scientists studying why gamers invert their controls. See, it's funny because Jim and I actually had this, for anyone who's listening, I'm Hunter, Mellified's Adrian, and Alien Pickles Jim, so you'll probably hear us just use our normal names, but...
Doxed. What?
Whoa!
Oh, uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Now the NSA is going to be like hitting up my phone looking at my pics.
Well, Hillary Wang, but
That's
anyway. Anyway,
She's in
moving
jail.
on.
We're safe.
But studying why gamers invert their controllers. So Jim and I were actually talking about this over the weekend, or maybe it was like last week, about controller inversions, because when I play with a controller, I typically invert my controls. It was when I was playing Anthem. That's what it was. I was playing Anthem because Anthem has inversion controls for like 3 different game modes. So like if you're walking around, if you're flying, or if you're underwater, they like you can set whether your controls are inverted or not for any of those 3 play modes. So if you're flying, you can be inverted or not. If you're walking, you can be. It's interesting that they let you set for each one of those circumstances, and it got frustrating.
It blew my mind that when you're playing it, right? Because I'm watching your stream, and you get in the water, and you're like, "Oh my god, now my controls are jacked again." And I'm like, I bet if you go in the options, there's specifically like a swimming inversion, and you're like, no way. And then we went in, and it was like, oh no, they did.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because swimming, you'd think swimming and flying would be the same mechanic, right?
Basically, like in that game, swimming should be like slower flying, basically.
Right.
And no different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I found that particularly interesting, and so I'm kind of one of those weird ones. My brain, the way my brain works, is like I play sim games, so like flight sim games. So like I'm using a HOTAS. When you push forward on the stick, the plane goes down, right?
Yep.
When you pull back on the stick, the plane goes up. So that is how my brain works when thinking about view space. So when I think about view space in general, like if I'm wanting to look down in my plane, I have to point the plane down. If I want to, it's a weird thing. And I also think of it like the head on your neck. So like when you look down, your head is going, forward. And so it's looking down. So that's kind of like I view the joystick toggle on the thumb sticks the same kind of way. Now it's funny because my brain sometimes will flip back and like I confuse myself, and I'll have to like push up to look up, and it's kind of goofy like that.
Well, and I think you hit on exactly what it is. It's how you mentally picture the movement, whether it's you're moving the head itself or you're moving the camera potentially. But even just talking about this, I've gotten completely confused about which one is inverted, because I was trying to think.
Okay, so inverted, yeah, that's great. Actually, inverted is actually the way that I do it. So if you play inverted, you push forward on the stick to look down. If you play not inverted, you push forward on the stick to look up. Which I feel like, which in my brain feels like it should be reversed. If you play inverted, you push on the stick to look up.
But if you're not using a gamepad and you're using the mouse, do you still invert it? If you're playing like, say, a flight sim.
So that's interesting that you say that, because if I push the mouse forward, I'm looking down.
You're a freak.
What? Do you push the mouse forward to look up? Wait,
yeah,
hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me think about this for a second.
Okay, so my brain used to be wired like yours.
No. Hold on.
Right?
I push the mouse to look up. I do push the mouse to look up.
Right, because it's like moving the cursor on the screen, right? You're aiming.
Right. Yeah. No. I do that. I do that. Yeah, that's how I play. I do play that way. Yes. No, it took me a second because I had to move my mouse around and think about it.
Invert it and play Doom. And
I can't do that. I can't do that. That would break my head. So I feel like a mouse is different though. I don't know. Like I feel like when I'm using a mouse and keyboard, it's like I'm using, because I use the mouse to click around. It's like people on an iPad when they say scroll up. I'm trying to actually look at the top of the page, and they mean they want me to like scroll down the page, and that confuses the shit out of me.
Yeah, but so many games start with look up, look down. You know, that's like the first two things they want you to do in the game. Like Halo specifically does exactly that. And you know, it's like look at the light, and so they get your option that way, and then that's kind of a nice transparent way to do it. I guess.
So to answer your question, I play inverted on a controller. I do not play inverted on a mouse.
Okay, so here's the $64,000 question. I don't know why it's $64,000, but it is.
It's a very like
because that was a lot of money back then.
If you were looking, if you're playing a game where you see your character on the screen and you are a floating camera behind them, third person, yes. When you push up on the right stick on the controller, what happens?
See, now that's interesting too, because this is the Anthem thing, right? So like Anthem with the controller.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a purpose in asking this because I'm going to ask a follow-up. So
I feel like in third-person games, I almost treat them similarly camera style as a first-person game.
Okay. So what happens
with
when
a controller?
You push left?
See, and that's actually a great question, because I think that's where I actually get myself screwed up, because if I do push to the left, I feel like my camera should look to the right, and I don't think it does.
Not by default, generally, yeah. So a lot of games do have a left-right inversion for third-person camera controls.
You know, and I never thought to think about that. I should probably look into that.
I find that fascinating that we... you know, whatever your particular preference, the fact that our brains all interpret this data differently is really interesting to me.
I also feel it's a cultural thing as well, because older Japanese games would have left and right reversed on the stick in a third-person game. It's like push to the right to turn to the left. Every one of them, like the old Capcom stuff, and it was really weird. But yeah, it's bizarre stuff. But that seemed to be like the way that Japan did it, and then they just kept doing it. You know, it's like we adopted WASD, and
now this also depends on how the camera is locked behind the third person. If it's locked like on a pivot of a head, it might be a little bit different. But if it's like a freeform like look camera, I think they get treated differently, because as I'm thinking about it, playing Division 2. Well, I play Division 2 with a mouse and keyboard, so it's a little bit different. But
you know, another one that does it is Super Mario, the N64. Yeah.
Super Mario 64.
Yeah. Because if you push to it's basically, it treats the camera as an object that orbits. So if you push it to the right, the camera goes to the right, not the view. The view goes opposite. So it's like, am I controlling a hovering drone behind my guy, or am I just controlling the guy's head?
Right. Yeah, well,
and the Japanese use drone mode for some reason.
Well, and it's interesting because this also sort of, to me, brings up, you brought up the Japanese developers, and a lot of people don't realize that the Japanese button layout has confirm or select or whatever you want to call it at what we would consider the east button position, where in the US it's typically in the south button position. And one of the, I guess, controversies, for lack of a better term, in Japan is that the PS5 changed the default so that the south button position is now confirmed for both US and Japan.
Okay, but did they change the layout of the buttons? Because it used to be like X was cancel and O was confirm, right? So,
well, that's how it is in Japan, but in the US, X is confirm.
Right, which strange, but
yes, yeah. But they didn't change the button layout, so they're basically asking everybody in Japan to mentally remap the meaning of X and O.
Yeah, that would drive me up the wall, because it's like, because I feel like
buttons solved at the console option level. is you set it there, and then every game inherits it from the console's setting.
Yeah, if the console would let you do such a thing. Now I know, like with like on the Xbox, like the Elite controller, for example, you have profiles, so you can like set things to be a little bit different. But I do find it interesting though that even though the button names are different, like ABXY or X0 square triangle or whatever that crap is, that
Cross. Technically, according to PlayStation, it's cross for X.
So cross. So even though the buttons are different symbols, I feel like button positions should relatively be the same. If that makes any sense.
Well, and that's where Nintendo used the Japanese style, where A, which is confirm or select, is on the east position, even in the US. So Nintendo kept the Japanese style button layout and meaning and brought it to the US, where Microsoft used the American layout and meaning. So A and B, which are the same on Xbox and Nintendo, but they're in different places, which messes me up.
It messes me up too, especially with emulators. Like, I'm like, all right, I gotta like, so like, I have to like always reverse it when I'm thinking about emulators. It's just like, okay, I need to make B A and A B. Right.
Well, and I played on the Switch and previous Nintendo devices for so long that in my brain I have a mental switch apparently that I can flip on and be in Nintendo mode, but it doesn't always stick when I switch. So all of a sudden I'll be, changing things, trying to mentally switch gears and doing it wrong. But then Nintendo on the Switch added system level remap, sort of what Alien was referencing. So you can change the position of A, B, X, Y in the firmware, and it applies to everything, which is great, especially for accessibility, which I think is really, really important for game companies to consider. And so the problem is my brain still automatically engages the Nintendo mode, even though I've remapped the controls. So I'm messed up no matter what I do at this point. It's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I'm sure. No. It was just I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it. I just think it's a really interesting thing, and I'm sure we could probably talk for quite a while on it. But that's crazy. Speaking of Nintendo though,
yes.
So Nintendo, I love Nintendo games. I've the first console I owned was a Nintendo. I mean, I first started playing games on the computer, but the first console I owned was a Super Nintendo. And I kind of always have been a fan. So it's like I've always had a PC and a Nintendo. And I think a lot of PC players typically have a Nintendo on the side, I feel like that's a very common trait amongst like hardcore PC players. If they have a console, a lot of them have a Nintendo something.
Well, Nintendo's always done kind of done their own thing, especially post GameCube, with the Wii and Switch. So yeah, it makes sense.
And I mean, and a lot of the games that you can get on the more modern consoles, you can get on the PC anyway. Most, not all. I mean, there are definitely some exclusives out there, like God of War as an example. But like, Nintendo though, I feel like ever since they went to the Wii, they've been getting really aggressive in like their online like patrolling of things in a pretty obnoxious sense. Anything from like the YouTube of putting
forcing
on people,
revenue shares.
They
were any Nintendo content you streamed or
like anything. It doesn't
shared on YouTube.
It was really strange that they went that way, because it kind of made them an enemy, and like no other big company was doing that. And then they've got a weird way of doing stuff too. So like, between like the Wii and the Wii U and the Switch, they all have slightly different like online stores. So like if you bought like a digital version of Mario 64 over here, you have to buy it over there. It just kind of becomes a weird place where you're buying the same game multiple times if you want to keep up with the current generation of console. Because I don't know about you, but I don't always want to keep every single generation of Nintendo console plugged in order to play those games. So This next one really bugged me when I heard about it. So Nintendo issues a cease and desist over the Big House Smash Bros. Tournament using emulation net play in order to run their tournament. We live in this, or I wouldn't say it's post-COVID, but like COVID's happened, so we're living in COVID reality, right? So we're living in this world where a lot of these weird new things are going on from government mandates. So like, it kind of puts a damper on events, and you have to get creative with these things. And so the Big House company, or group or whatever it was who runs the Smash Brothers tournament was going to use this net play emulation feature in order to run this tournament. And Nintendo got whiff of that, and they said, yeah, don't do that. I think that's really irresponsible on Nintendo's part, especially from like a games preservation, and like, I mean, think about this, like it keeps people love your game so much that they want to do whatever it is that they can to figure out a way to play it even during the middle of a pandemic, and you're going to be like, nope, can't have fun. Like,
and specifically, well, this gets a little there's a little nuance here in that this is for GameCube and Wii emulators, right? So you're playing an older version of Smash Brothers, not the latest Switch version. And because Smash Brothers uses a more basic net code, they wanted the emulator, which has oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the term. I'm trying to find it.
Slippy is a program that allows net play from games on Dolphin emulator, to work over the internet.
Yes, sorry, it's the rollback netcode that's the key feature of Slippy. So Slippy enables rollback netcode in Smash Brothers, which is a huge deal for fighting games because it provides a more accurate simulation when latency is kind of all over the place and an issue, and it provides a more consistent experience. So it makes perfect sense that these guys would want to use the best net code possible for this tournament. And for those who don't know, competitive Smash Brothers is intense. There's some really, really hardcore fans. So yeah, it's a little frustrating that Nintendo went this route. I guess maybe they didn't like that it was emulators, but these guys are far from the first to use emulators to play older Nintendo games. So,
especially for tournaments or for live streaming for purposes too, because
so did Nintendo sue the tournament, or what was the deal?
No, they did a cease and desist.
They did a cease and desist. So the interesting thing here in this article, it talks about that, so Slippy is a program that allows net play. I'm reading from the article, which is on nichegamer.com. Slippy is a program that allows net play for games on Dolphin, GameCube, and Wii emulators, most likely what would have been used for the Super Smash Bros. Melee tournament. As such, it could be seen as an event, as the event would have promoted pirating the GameCube game, which is in fact not what they were trying to do. I'm not one to sit here and advocate for piracy, right? But at the same time, I'm going to sit here and advocate for games preservation. Of course there needs to be, legal methods to do so, but I think there's also, according to this article, there might be some things where Nintendo didn't think that they were getting a cut of the revenue because of the game that was being used. I think the event was also trying to seek sponsors. So I don't know. This just, to me, is just like, I understand Nintendo's trying to protect its property and they're well within their rights to do so, but at the same time, I think they need to have a little leeway on understanding that this, maybe work with them on putting out verbiage that's like, this is not to condone piracy. We have verified blah 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 blah. Just that kind of thing.
Yeah. They certainly could have handled it differently. And the cease and desist is definitely the giant banhammer legal option, which is sad. Well, shall we go on to some new hardware?
Yeah. So this is interesting. What do we got?
The Razer's finally shipping the Tomahawk modular gaming PC. This is something they showed at CES back in January 2020. If anybody can remember the before times, it's
we're in the hereafter, you know,
yes,
but the
yes.
before.
The before time. And it's an interesting concept. So it's a case that has two slots. One slot is for your GPU, and the other slot is for a computer on a board that Intel makes. And so you're getting a i9 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, a 512 gig SSD, and a 2 terabyte hard drive on this card. And then in the second slot, you know, one of the things they do is sell this case with a 3080 NVIDIA GPU. So that's a pretty decent mid-level gaming PC. The theory being
Well,
that you can just swap out these cards and upgrade it.
mid level, like everything but the graphics card, because that graphics card is top tier.
That's true. That's true. The fair point. I was thinking more of the hardware on the PC side. But
which
Right,
box is
absolutely.
this? Is it?
This is the one that you posted the other day.
Right, that's what I was
in our
thinking. Is
Gilded.
that Razer
Yes.
thing?
What's interesting is this is like an upgrade from what they've done. So like in the past, Razer has sold container contraptions for like people with laptops, where you can get like a standalone graphics card that connects to a laptop that lets you play PC gaming on like a low end or medium end laptop that doesn't support PC gaming. So this is just kind of like more of an evolution of that, in my opinion.
Now, what I think's going to happen is that the 3080 cards are in such short supply because the Bitcoin assholes, once again, I don't understand why they can't come up with some pre-order system that only allows one per customer, but apparently they don't care. So anyway, can't get your hands on one. So you know how people are like, well, I can buy this external hard drive and then shuck it. So I bet like people are going to be buying any like PC that has like the card and then some inexpensive stuff, and they're just going to shuck the card out of the machines and stick it in their own machine.
quite possibly.
Well, maybe, but go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just saying, at $3,200, this is not a cheap option.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was actually about to say. Was like, this is not cheap at all.
That's a stupidly ridiculous price for that machine, honestly, because like
you can get this thing. You can get this thing without a graphics card for $2,400, and that still doesn't. Make sense.
That's also stupidly ridiculous. It's like what is cool about it other than it looks like an Xbox.
Well, it's the promise of upgradability, I guess. But I can't. I mean, first of all, you're relying on Intel to continue to ship PCs in this form factor that are, gaming worthy, if you will.
Yeah, but what's the point? Why would I? Other than that case looks like an Xbox, why would I buy this thing? Why wouldn't I get an Alienware or something else?
Right, I feel like you get
of upgradability.
I feel like you can upgrade an Alienware. Sure, I was about to say you could probably get a gaming laptop for a lot cheaper and have a lot more fun with it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I think I don't know how to build a PC, so give me the PC on a card and I can just pop it in and upgrade my whole machine.
Yeah. But you see, at this rate though, we're at a generation of graphics cards. I mean, we're in a place where graphics cards are like almost obnoxious, right? So like the 1660, for example, like the NVIDIA 1660 series of cards are still really good cards. You can get a lot of like high-end gaming out of that stuff. You might not be able to do everything at 4K ultimate, like ultra graphics, but like you're still going to be able to, and a lot of people are running things in 1080 still. Like, I mean, 4K monitors are not like the standard norm amongst most PC gamers right now. So, I mean, you're still looking at either 1080 or 1440p gaming for most people that are going to be gaming. So you get like a 1660, you even get like a 2070 Super. Those things are still ridiculous. Like they're really good. And then you get to the 3000 series and it's just like you're set up for the next 10 years to be able to game. I mean, at that, like, because unless there's something extremely I don't think graphics cards are going to be the driving force in the the next generation of gameplay. I think it's gonna be a lot to do with how storage works, because we're starting to see that on the consoles, right? With the way that they load and play games and stuff like that. So I think storage technologies and RAM, I think, are going to be the big key kickers in gameplay development as like the next thing, because every so often there's another generation of something that becomes a bottleneck. Like this for this period of time, for this 5 years, your bottleneck's going to be your CPU. For this period of time, your bottleneck's going to be your GPU. For this period of time, your bottleneck's probably going to be your hard drive. So like at some point, you're just going to have like a set of technology that's just going to be good enough to where you don't have to think about it, and it's this other piece of like technology in your machine that you got to think about. In terms of PC, that is. Because, like, you know, with the consoles having, like, the greatest load times they've ever had on both the PS5 and the Series X, I mean, you're going to start seeing that kind of develop over onto the PC, because PC's had solid state for a while, but the kind of loading times these consoles are getting are pretty fantastic. So,
yeah.
So
well, let me clarify a couple things about this. So the memory and the storage are on the card are upgradable, so you can get, you know, more RAM, more NVMe SSD, or more SATA storage. The CPU is not upgradable. That's the piece you'd have to buy a new card for. And
it is an i9 like 9980HK. So I mean that's nothing to like laugh at.
Nothing to sneeze at. Yeah. It's a pretty high end processor. I mean, obviously the i10s are out now. But what Razer says is the market for this is bringing it to tournaments or LAN parties, or just having a smaller case. So
I mean, that's fair, but like I mean we're reverting back to this era of like shuttle PCs. Remember these? Like remember like whatever, like all the shuttle PCs were like all the rage. The micro form factor, like custom build machines that people were doing like in like the middle like 2000s, I think it was, or somewhere in that time frame. Like it was just like those things were like all the rage, and they were like all that everybody ever talked about. You can build these small form factor PCs that you can take with you to LAN parties and tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, well, for $3,200, I could build a way more bitchin' machine than like, you know, in a small form factor than this thing. Like this thing, I feel like I'm paying for the brand and like the clout more than I am paying for the hardware.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue with that. Yeah, you're definitely paying a premium for what this offers. And I mean, you might get an i10 or an i11 version of this someday, but that's a big maybe. You're paying that premium on the hope, a prayer and a dream.
Man,
right?
That $2,400, I could build an extremely amazing small form factor, way better than what this is.
Yeah. Well, speaking of changing things up, the Sea of Thieves guys are doing something different with the game in 2021. And Hunter and I, we kind of pre-gamed this a little bit, have very different opinions about this one. So Hunter, why don't you start us off?
Well, So Sea of Thieves, this is interesting. So if you have Game Pass, either like just normal Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate, like you're going to have access to this game. So I mean, whether you have Game Pass just for the PC or a Game Pass just for the Xbox, so you have access to this game. And it's part of that package. So you already have access to it without having to pay any kind of money for it, right? And I think that's a really great avenue, because everything that you can spend money on this game is purely cosmetic. So there's no real pay to win mechanic. Because I had someone ask me the other day, it's like, well, how can I get a better sword? And I'm like, well, there is no better sword. Like and the thing that I think that's nice about it is every player is evenly matched, right? So it's like you have, you know, if I have a cutlass and you have a cutlass, despite what it looks like, you know, it's whoever can click or like, you know, push the button better or has better aim. That's probably going to be the one that's going to, you know, win the fight. And I appreciate that. Right. So, you know, everything else at that point is all like cosmetic. So I think the fact that they're adding a battle pass or seasons into the game, I find that interesting, because they're constantly adding in more content, a lot more content, and that's the plan, that they're going to be continuing to add more content. and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with this idea of, you know, of paying for some more premium style like content, especially if, you know, I'm getting access to the game for free already. Um, you know,
Well, to be clear, you are paying as part. You're getting the game free as part of a paid subscription.
right, but like, I mean, but when you look at the paid when you boil it down to like the 100+ games plus EA Play plus blah blah blah, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, I'm paying 5 cents for this game a month or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you boil it down, you know,
Sure.
So I mean, it's virtually next to nothing is what I'm paying for this game. So, I think the seasons seasons bringing in more content through seasons, I think, is great. I think it's a wait and kind of see on the battle pass stuff, because I'm not entirely sure what battle pass fully means here. But it'll be interesting.
Well, I think my concern is, as we've already got a time limited selection of cosmetics in the store, right? There are things that you can only buy for a limited time. There are things that are only been available as giveaways or special events and things like that. So as a new player coming in, we were playing the other night, Hunter, and one of your friends that you brought in had some cool sales, I think it was. And they were bragging up like, oh yeah, you can't get these sales anymore. They're super, super rare. And so you've already got the FOMO, you know, fear of missing out factor. And then you add on top of that content that'll only theoretically be available in the battle pass. So if I don't play the game enough to earn the cosmetics, I may never get them. It's just, to me, a little too much. I don't mind.
And I think that's an interesting, right. I think that's an interesting perspective, though, because, you know, as you said, it's cosmetic. So like, some people like getting the quote unquote loot, right? You know, they want the cool cosmetics or they want the cool loot. But at the end of the day, that loot doesn't add anything other than, again, clout, which is actually, I think, kind of a cool thing in terms of, because, you know, the guys that we were playing with the other night, you know, they were talking about like, hey, remember that cool event that we did, and like, you know, all those things, you know, remember like how we were able to do this and that, and, you know, get those guys with the blunder bombs and blah blah blah. And it just, you know, they were remembering the event that is not around right now, and that's how they were able to get some of those cool quote unquote skins. I don't feel like in those kinds of terms I miss out per se. I just think, you know, because I do think that that's a cool thing that is done where, you know, hey, if you were around for this, but I mean, it's like, you know, if a new player comes along, if a new player doesn't, you know, like, you know, there's new players that won't ever be able to get access to some of that stuff because they weren't around when that event happened. And I'm okay with that, you know. And it's just like, you know, when you play an MMO, it's just like, well, how did you get this? Well, I've been playing the MMO for 10 years and they had like a 10-year anniversary, and if you were subscribed during that anniversary time, every player that was subscribed got a blah blah blah. You know, that's pretty standard in my opinion for like an MMO. And this is almost like this is almost an MMO in its own right, in a weird sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just, you know, I'm reading through this and they're talking about special premium option known as the Plunder Pass, which gives discount on the Pirate Emporium, the store for these cosmetic items, and exclusive items. And then the rest of the season rewards will be free. So that makes it sound like it'll be mostly free stuff. But if you want to pay, you get, you know, a few cool things. And that seems better to me, or at least a little more balanced. But what I've seen with Fortnite is, especially with the tiering that Fortnite does, where, you know, there's all this pressure for you to get to get the battle pass, to get to the right tier. If you don't get to the right tier, to pay to get to the right tier. And it just becomes this constant cup rattling, right? Hey, how about a little more money? How about a little more money? How about a little more money? And I actually really like Sea of Thieves as it is, because I feel like they've found the right balance between selling me on those cosmetics and letting me enjoy the game. Where I feel like Fortnite has gone too far into the give us money, give us money, give us money aspect. Like every time you load the game, it pops up and says, "Hey, this is what you could be getting with the battle pass," and things like that. So that's what I don't want to see.
And that's fair. I do feel like, though, with Sea of Thieves, they've been doing a really good job on continuing to supply content. Because I just found out the other night, and I've been playing for the last 6 months at this point, as a newer player, and I've been mostly progressing the Gold Hoarders faction. But talking with some of these guys, they have Pirate Legend, which means they've gotten level 50 with 3 of the factions, and then they get a special, and they were they had to they went to the tavern and they played this song, and it opened up a vault underneath the tavern, and there's a whole other section under there where you can get special quests and stuff like that are down just under, you can only get them by going down there. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that was I knew Pirate Legend was a thing, but I didn't realize that it unlocked another tier of content per se. And so, and cosmetics and stuff like that are all down there as well. So it's I think this whole seasons thing with them adding new content, but of course, with seasons, they're going to try and continue to put out quality of life patches and features, and a special event per month. I think that's good stuff, because it keeps people interested in playing, right? If you're adding new stuff, if you're doing special events, it keeps people interested rather than just kind of the standard, go find a treasure chest and dig it up.
Yeah, and I guess that's the balance to me that they need to strike, is pressuring players to participate at a really advanced level where you're spending a couple hours a day in the game to keep up with all this stuff, which is very much what Fortnite is set up to do for their battle pass, versus what hopefully Sea of Thieves will do, which is a little more casual and more of a reward for active players, which that seems a little more reasonable.
Yeah. Well, speaking of updates to games, you put in a new thing here about Dauntless Reforged update makes big changes. So talk about that.
Well, so Dauntless, for those that don't know, is for copyright reasons not Monster Hunter. But if I did the Pepsi Challenge blind taste test, you'd be like, "Oh, this is Monster Hunter." Yeah, you would think it's Monster Hunter.
Can you just hey, what do you want to play? We're gonna play not Monster Hunter.
Yes, exactly. They were not able to do that name because of the copyrights. But so Dauntless is this Monster Hunter-like game, but it actually has really good online. One of the cool things that they did is it is cross-platform, cross-play, cross-progression. So no matter where you choose to play the game, it's your character, your stuff, whatever time you've invested in the game is available to you on any platform, which I love. And so the game's always been really good about kind of shaving off some of the fluff around the core gameplay loop that Monster Hunter sort of layered on over the years. So it's about getting in with your friends. It's very much focused on co-op, although you can do matchmaking as well as play with friends. But it's just about getting in, taking down those monsters, getting the loot, forging better armor, better weapons, and then taking down more monsters. And with this Reforged expansion, they've added a ton of new content, as well as rebalancing and polishing the game. So they've added 18 new islands with different biomes and kind of feel to them. There's things, snow, desert, kind of all those usual biomes you'd sort of expect to see. They've added new monster types, new systems for the monsters, so they have different characteristics that you have to worry about and account for when you're fighting them. More locations, more weapon mods, more buffs. So it's just a huge update, and it's really a game that I think is offering a lot right out of the gate. If you buy nothing, you can play it and enjoy it and have a really great time. They do have a battle pass. I know I just kind of took a giant crap all over the concept of battle passes. And I'm not a huge fan of that, to be frank. I have too many games I want to play, and I feel too much pressure to commit to one game. I'm sorry, baby. I can't commit. I've got to, play the field. And so I don't like the battle pass, but I can appreciate that that's a way for them to monetize what is a free game. In this case with Dauntless, and I think it's a little lower key sales pressure than what I've seen from Fortnite. So definitely recommend checking it out. It's free. You got nothing to lose. On PC, it's an Epic Store exclusive. They use Epic's backend to do all of the cool multi-platform stuff. So that's why it's exclusive on Epic on PC, but you can also get it on PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and then of course the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X or Series consoles. So yeah.
Nice.
I'm gonna make these guys play this with me at some point. I think
we've both played. I think Jim and I have both played Dauntless together, but it's been a while. And I have Monster Hunter installed, and I told him I was going to play with him, but we never did load it up that day. So
I do love me some Monster Hunter.
I do feel that we need to be playing that again soon. But speaking of games to play together, I know that people listening, it's going to be too little too late, but we do have a community over on Gilded. If you go to gilded.otherworlds.gg, you guys can find our community. I'm going to be playing Halo tonight with a group of people. We're going to do some crossplay action because Halo Master Chief Collection is now crossplay. So there's a big group of us that are going to be playing tonight. So if you guys are interested in playing games, and we're super into co-op, we're super family friendly, we're super into just like hanging out and having a good time, drama free, and just enjoying games together as a community. So tonight, that's what's going on with a bunch of we have another community that we're friends with, and so we're all collectively getting together, and we're gonna be playing some Halo tonight. So speaking of playing games, that's some of the things that we love to do together. So feel free to come on over.
Yeah. Join. What you should do is join the Gilded server so you hear about these things on the community calendar, because that's one of my favorite features about Gilded is that they have this features
did you
like
see
a
that
calendar
last night?
built in.
Did you see that last night? So Jim, I don't know if you saw this, but I did a test event where I did like a community night test event, and what it does is it spins up an instance just for that community event for that night with full on like video sharing and all that stuff. And then when the event is over, it'll archive that instance so you don't have to like have like all this like all these rooms all over the place.
Yeah.
That's weird. So it's basically like a separate Gilded server that comes up for that, has a bunch of sub rooms and
not for that. So like I'll ping you so you can kind of see it in Gilded here, and you'll see that it'll just like because you didn't actually click that you were going to the event, so you wouldn't see it unless you're actually attending the event. And none of you guys joined the test event that I did, but I wasn't expecting you guys to because you didn't know about it. But I pinged Mellified in it last night, and so I just pinged you in there. And so essentially what it does is it spins up this community night thing. And since it hasn't been a full 24 hours yet, it hasn't archived this yet. So after 24 hours of no conversation, it'll archive this room for that event. So I think that's just really cool that for events, it'll spin up a new little sub instance here. And
so how do I rehydrate that? Do I go to the calendar and then click the event and it pops me back into it and I can view the archive, but I can't add to it because it's like read only at that point?
I believe that is how that works. So,
well, we'll know in 24 hours.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool. Well, anyway,
I was gonna say, we were kind of touching on community games. Borderlands has been one of the more fun multiplayer looter shooters that I've played in the last 10 years, whatever it's been since Borderlands 1 came out. We're old. But
wow,
they did a release of Borderlands 2 for the Switch, and to say it was a bit of a technical train wreck is probably putting it lightly. They had a number of performance issues, crashes, all sorts of stability problems with the game. And ultimately, the Take-Two guys and Gearbox had to fix it, and they did. So there is an update out now for the Borderlands Legendary Collection or the Handsome Collection, which includes different sets of content, but both of them have Borderlands 2. And you should go get that update because the game's actually playable. And if you deleted it in a fit of frustration, like I did, because it was so bad, now you can actually enjoy the game. So I thought that was pretty cool that they stood behind their product like that. I think we need to, recognize and reward developers for doing that.
He deleted it right back to his PC. He's just like, I'm just gonna keep playing over here. I think this.
I have it on PC, Xbox, Switch, probably on PS4. I think Handsome Collection was a PS Plus freebie at one point, so I've certainly got it on all the things.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think I even have it for Vita. Wasn't it Borderlands 2 that was on the Vita?
Maybe the Tall Tale ones or whatever it was. It was called the.
No, anyway, doesn't matter.
It's interesting. The Switch is such a weird console. Like we had that conversation about Nintendo earlier. I because I don't like a lot of the business practices that Nintendo's doing right now. I really can't justify buying a Switch. It just bugs me to death. As much as I love their games, because I really do. The Switch is just an interesting thing, and the games that they have decided to put on this thing are also equally as interesting. Like they put Star Wars Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy on this thing. When they made that was like a year ago or something like that, or a year or two ago, where they put those games, they ported those games over to the Switch, and I'm like, wow, way to keep those games alive and putting them on like this portable console. I was just a little surprised by that.
What was even funnier about that is they used the same source code as Jedi Academy on PC, including the multiplayer code. So there was no distinction on the servers between people playing on the Switch and people playing on the PC.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And the PC
awesome.
Players just went in and completely obliterated the poor Switch people because the mouse and keyboard were much, much easier to pull off the crazy lightsaber tricks. So yeah, it was
PCMR, PCMR.
PC Master Race is
it's a terrible,
alive and well.
It's a terrible thing, but it's also really funny. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing a PCMR t-shirt right now, full on with the it's the what was the Yahtzee guy, what's that
Yes, Yahtzee's the creator, the review guy who came up with the little character with the hair flowing.
Yeah. He's on I have that on my shirt. I think it's the funniest thing in the world. I love it. It cracks me up.
So PC Master Race aside, yes, Nintendo, the Switch is a weird console because it's really underpowered compared to certainly the new generation, but even last generation, PS4 and Xbox One. And so it's led to this weird porting. A lot of game companies are taking old games and porting them to the Switch because they will run okay on the Switch with some performance or with some visual downgrades. But the quality of those ports varies so wildly from company to company, who did the port. The Witcher 3 does not look anywhere near as good as it does on PC, but it was a great looking game, when it came out, and still is. And so even with a downgrade, and especially on the portable screen on the Switch, it looks really good. So it's interesting, the Switch has sort of, to me, become a little bit of a dumping ground for, 5-10-year-old games, or, even older in the case of the Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy titles. And I already can play those, and I can play the best version of them on PC, so that hasn't been super interesting, but I do love the Nintendo first-party stuff on there.
What would be amazing? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, the stuff, like, if the Switch was an open emulation platform as well, I would have one.
I was actually getting ready to mention that.
Yeah, it's like it because I know like if I went and bought a Vita is really easy apparently to convert into
I've
that.
done 8 of them now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah, between the PC, the little mini console version, and the handheld version of the Vita, it's super easy to unlock them for homebrew.
Interesting. So this company GameSir makes this X2 controller, which I posted earlier in the week that I was buying one, and it has arrived. It's very interesting. So it's basically identical to Joy-Cons for a Switch, and then you seat your phone in it, and it's like the perfect dimensions to hold a smartphone. And it's got the USB-C connector, so it's and the connector actually will tilt. So in order to get the phone in, you can actually like slip it onto the connector and then rock the phone back into place and clamp it shut. So and the phone is completely operable in here, and it's actually like a couple millimeters off of the surface in the back so that it doesn't interfere with cooling of the phone and stuff. It was a really well designed gamepad, right? The only other one that competes with this is Razer made one that was ridiculously expensive. And but anyway,
yeah, Razer's been interesting as they've dabbled in like technologies, because at one point they were doing like tablet gaming, so they had like a Windows tablet with like these weird controllers on the side that was super expensive,
which was basically like a PC Switch kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
well, Windows, I believe.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this, because like the NVIDIA, for example, they dabbled in their Shield devices. So the first thing they came out with was their Shield Portable, which I actually have one of those. And then they came out with their Shield tablet with a controller, and like you can get one of those, which Jim has one of those, or at least he did. Do you still have that?
I still do, yeah.
And that has, and of course, then they came out with their Shield TVs, and then they have like their iterations of their Shield TVs.
And the only reason that I don't use the K1 tablet very much, I ended up having to buy like a much like this, right? Like a Bluetooth Joy-Con controller thing to dock it in, because otherwise you've got a separate Xbox controller. So if I've got that,
you have to like set it up somewhere.
I got to use, I might as well just get my laptop, screw it.
Right.
And the laptop's got a 1660 in it. By the way, when you were talking about like the 1660 being a solid card, so what about the 2060, because it's got the RTX on it, so that will future proof you for that? But is it
probably? But if you're
get a 2060
but
now,
if you want my like Hunter's like opinion on graphics cards for future proofing, bang for buck, dollar for performance, a 2070 Super is probably going to be the best money that you're going to spend on like a really high end graphics card that's going to future proof you for a while.
Yeah, the problem is it costs the same as the 3070 if the 3070 was actually available. And I'm not like in a rush, so I can.
No, and that's the goofy thing about this iteration of like console technology, right? Or I mean, graphics card technology. The 2060 though, I just don't feel like is going to cut it on cost for performance. If you're talking about money. The 3000 series though, I'm still a little cautious on, because they did have a launch issue. They also had, I think, with some of their capacitors or something like that, and then they also had supply issues. So I mean, people are trying to like
still having supply issues,
right? And so I feel like if you really just want to like, personally, I think people are getting a little too overhyped for the 3000 series. I still think the 2000 series is where it's at. As far as getting like, if you want a top end graphics card, go for a 2070 Super. Don't be ridiculous and go for like a 2080 or 2080 Ti, because you're just gonna murder yourself with money. Like it's not worth it.
Yeah, but if the price of the 2070 had like cut in half whenever the 3070 came out, I would get a 2070 as just like a stopgap. Like I'll keep this, and then whenever I can get a 3070, I'll just give this to my wife. Or whatever, stick it in her machine. Because honestly, at the level that she games at, she plays like WoW and The Sims and Call of Duty and stuff, and you would never feel the upgrade. The one reason that she wants an RTX card is so that she can play Minecraft with the ray tracing on. And I don't feel that that's a $1,200 investment
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no. Well, so depending on the route that you go, like if you get like a 2060 or 2070 Super, I do feel like some of these cards are going out, and there's a lot of scalping going on with graphics cards right now. I feel like, but from when I bought a 2070 Super, like that's where the money was at for me, and I felt like that was like the best bang for your dollar. But anyway, back to the whole Switch thing for just a second though. So the X1 chips that are in those, which is also a variant of it, is also you were talking about the Nvidia tablet, is also in the Switch. I just think that's just super interesting that they're relatively close, which is probably why you don't see the Nvidia tablets, or they stopped selling them relatively quickly, especially after they started coming out with the set top box version of the the little TVs.
Well, they quit on their tablets as soon as they signed the deal to do the Switch.
Right.
So
as soon as the Switch was announced, it was like the tablets went away.
Because the Switch is that tablet, basically.
For the most part, it's relatively close.
Yeah. Now, my problem with that, though, is that tablet for games, it works great. For everything else, it
sucks.
Is
yeah.
the laggiest
Terrible
Android device I've ever used. It's
right.
like, to just like swipe the screen over, it chugs. And it's like, how can it be so good at games and so terrible at just having
it was their UI design for their interface there, because the Nvidia Shield TV, for example, is a far superior experience. I personally think the Shield TV is one of the best devices to go with a TV that I have ever found. And that's where you were talking about.
I replaced the launcher, though. If it's a launcher problem, no, I got rid of that. It's just slow to load apps. Stuff like that.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Like it's whatever they're operating, like the way the operating system worked on the tablet.
Yeah, it's like an IO issue and a memory.
I know I said thing. Like user interface, but I meant the OS. But like the funny thing about that is like you were talking about, like if I could just like turn the Switch into an emulation device. Well, like the earlier generations of the Switch, they were able to hack that, and you could actually homebrew that. And then Nintendo fixed it in their later releases of the Switch, which is a shame, because if I could I'd buy a Nintendo Switch, a new one, if I could sideload and like put like a Steam Link app on it, or Xbox Game Pass app on it, and also still play Nintendo games on it. I would buy one today.
Right. Like what they should have done is, like, the Switch runs Android 10. You can go on the Google store and just, you want Fortnite,
right,
get it, whatever.
Right.
But you pop a Nintendo cartridge in it, and now you're playing an official Nintendo game, and
right.
They don't have to worry about like emulator stuff or whatever, because it's so proprietary and right. So it's like, if they had made a multi-mode tablet, I mean, just let me dual boot it, if nothing else. That would be fine. I would give you $100 extra if I could. But it's like, why do I want to carry two devices? And because it's really the convergence factor. Like, I want one thing that does whatever,
and that's an interesting point you make, because Nintendo, like the Switch being a portable device, I would never take it with me anywhere. Like if I got a Switch even today, it would stay in its dock, probably with my TV.
Yeah, that's how I use it, and that's the rumor, is that there'll be a Switch Pro, which is a fully docked, always docked.
Because it's weird, like, and it's a cultural thing again. Whenever they made the Switch Lite, it's like it can't dock, and I would have preferred the one that can't be portable. So,
right, you want the opposite, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted the opposite of that, and it's like, well, because you save money on the screen. I don't need a screen on this thing. I don't need the Joy-Cons. You just give me a Switch controller and a set-top box, and pow, we're done.
And that's exactly why I love the Shield TV, because it is my all-in-one device. Like I play all my PC stuff goes over there. I was able to sideload the Game Pass app, so I can do Game Pass like cloud streaming gameplay onto it. I would really like for them to make the Xbox apps work on that thing, because my goodness, if I could just, because I keep my Xbox One X by my PC because I play it at my PC. It connects right to my PC, so I can just play right here with my friends. So it's like, and I've mentioned this before, I feel like it's the perfect companion console to a PC. But there are times where I just want to, like, you know, kick it back on the bed and just like relax for a little bit and play on my nice 4K TV. You know, I stream all of my PC stuff to it. I would love to be able to, like, you know, stream my console to it too, because not everything in Game Pass is in the cloud streaming. So,
dude, I have this vision of you like kick back in bed, like remoting your PC screen, which is then streaming from the Xbox to the PC. So you're like daisy chaining.
I've thought about doing that, but the input lag with that's probably going to be obnoxious.
Oh, it would be bad.
Yeah, that would be pretty awful.
But I mean, there needs to be an Xbox app on the Shield TV.
I agree. I completely agree. And what they need to do,
doesn't exist. Didn't they make that for Android?
Well, so it is
remote play.
There is for Android, but you have to remember that Android OS is a little different when you talk about like Android TV. It's still Android, but the app ecosystem's slightly different, right? And I have to actually
sideload the real Google Play Store on there.
Well, yes and no, because even then I was able to install a sideload version of the Xbox app. So I've mentioned this, I think, on the last show, but the way that they do this is they have two apps. They have the Xbox app, which manages your Xbox account and lets you console stream to your Android phone. The Game Pass app is the Game Pass portion of things, which lets you cloud stream from the xCloud stuff to your phone.
Okay, I meant specifically the console.
Right. So here's the deal. So there's two separate apps which need to be one, but I can sideload the Xbox the Game Pass app on my Shield and it works fine. The Xbox app, however, and I've gone on Reddit and everybody on Reddit's talking about this too. The Xbox app, however, even sideloaded, will not work on the Shield TV.
Does it just not boot, or it doesn't connect and stream?
It crashes on boot. So like you try to load it up and it just crashes. And I've tried various versions of it. The beta version of it, because there's also a beta version out there, and so it none of them work.
Weird. So
there was a third-party app that somebody developed before Microsoft came out with this, called like One Connect or something like that did work. And so there was, at one point, I was able to actually console stream to my Shield TV in the other room.
Yeah.
And that worked actually really well. But
so which works better, the NVIDIA streaming or the Steam streaming, if you do PC to the Shield?
So that's an interesting question. So there's actually three modes in here that you can look at. So there's the Shield streaming. So excuse me, there's the Steam Link app. There's the NVIDIA Shield streaming app, and then there's Moonlight, which uses the same backend technology. However, Moonlight is a little bit. Moonlight just connects to the NVIDIA app on your computer. It is more lightweight, and it actually, some people have reported that it actually performs better than the native Shield streaming from Shield app to Shield app.
Right, because it used to be, maybe still is, you had to have a Shield device to use the Shield app. So Moon's whatever.
Moonlight gets around that. So
that's why Moonlight existed. Is
right. So, but you still need NVIDIA on the PC side.
Yeah.
But on the exit side, so like if you have a mobile device, Moonlight lets you connect to, if you don't have I can Moonlight NVIDIA stream to my phone.
If I have an ATI card, I'm just SOL.
Well, if you have an ATI card, I'm going to ask you what year is it. But anyway.
No, they actually have an RTX card now, apparently. And people were like, yeah, and they were like, wow, like ATI is once again the fastest CPU.
You're like, I'm back, baby.
Yeah, and like they have some kind of, I haven't looked at this, like how it works, because I would have thought RTX would be proprietary, or did they like reverse engineer it or what?
I have no idea.
But apparently they're competitive with that now in some way. I don't know how competitive, but enough that fanboys were like, woo. And yeah, so I don't know.
Microsoft, because of the new Xbox Series consoles, use NVIDIA GPUs. The ray tracing on Xbox is at the DirectX level, but the ATI cards are compatible
Bonkers.
for ray tracing.
Okay.
That's
So
nuts.
just because the ray tracing actually happens at DirectX, so they don't have to have the
Yes.
yeah.
Here at DirectX, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
moving on to some other like game news real quick, and then we'll probably get into.
Well, hold on.
Like...
I'm not done with.
Go ahead. Go.
Gamepad thing yet. All right, because this all comes together. So I said I wanted a converged device that is an Android phone that is also a Nintendo Switch, right? That I could actually just plug a cartridge in and we go. So this controller thing.
Alexa, make me a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie, pull that shit up. So that's they should
Damn
have.
it.
Dude, that's the meme.
That should be
take an Alexa and just make a Jamie personal assistant where you can just be like anything
Jamie,
you're talking about,
up.
it's listening, and you just say, Jamie, pull that shit up, and it comes up on the TV. It's just like a Google search thing.
Hashtag Joe Rogan.
Oh my God. That's I'm gonna
that's
send
funny.
to Joe now and get rich. Meme rich though, I'm gonna be a meme millionaire. So anyway, this gamepad thing, you dock your phone in it, right? And then there is a Switch emulator. The emulator only works with this particular gamepad. So there's some kind of deal between the guys making the gamepad and the dude with the emulator thing. Might be the same guys, one parent company removed or something. But anyway, so they'll sell you the emulator. But the controversy is that the emulator is apparently a stolen version of CMU. So now there's like that problem. And then Nintendo looked at this thing and Nintendo like the like Metal Gear like exclamation point appeared above their head like the lawyers, right? So they're like, well, because they associated the gamepad, which is an excellent gamepad, with this highly shady emulator, like is that gonna be bad news for the gamepad, because Nintendo is gonna like come at them full speed probably, because and then but they don't have a way to get ROMs or anything theoretically, because they're like, well, you have to own the game and dump your own ROM and then transfer that to the phone. Plus the emulator, like I haven't bothered with it because my experience with CMU was like I have to go out and actually find the like shader compile dumps and stuff, or spend hours cooking my own shader dump, and it's like, this isn't worth it.
CMU on PC has gotten a lot better, and both you and Mellified have now like mentioned. I can off air show you guys how to configure your emulator to work with your game dumps that you have. It's actually gotten really good, because one of the things that the CMU emulator recently just did was they added an auto configure for CPU cores. So like it used to be you had to set it to like one core for your recompiler if you really wanted to make things like work smooth. But now they've gotten it to work with like multi-core stuff, and you can set each game to auto detect and like use the amount of cores that it needs to run the games. And like my experiences with Breath of the Wild and like HD Wind Waker and stuff like that have like drastically improved. So off air I can show you guys how to like configure your emulator to do that. Okay. But these emulators on mobile devices though, I've kind of abandoned them, because while they're cool, my argument is like then I've got save files for two different games, like for the same game in two different places. And then like it's just like, well, how far have I progressed on the PC versus like if I want to play this game, then I need to play it on my phone. And so that's where I've run into like the issue of just like now with the Steam Link stuff is I'm able to just like stream the emulator to my mobile device or to my Shield TV, and I just like don't even mess with it on my phone anymore.
Okay, so this goes one layer deeper, because the same people who make the gamepad thing for this thing, right? Sorry, Biden moment. The people that make the gamepad thing for this, look at that link that I just posted for that game emulator in the chat. I'm scared to name it because it's so shady,
fine.
right? So not only because whenever I bought a I forget the name of the tablet that I used to have, right? It was a JDX 3070 or some JXD or whatever. Anyway, it was a high-end gaming tablet back in the day, like pre-Switch. It was like $160 gaming tablet, right? And it was one of the ones that was basically like a K1 that had like built-in Joy-Con stuff like welded to it. So that thing came with this emulator on it. So that's my experience of that. And this emulator continues to be developed, right? But what is really interesting about this is not only is this thing a like a RetroArch kind of emulator that just does everything, it also is the ROM repository somehow, right? So if I pick a game, I don't need the ROM. It will actually stream the ROM to my phone and then launch the emulator.
Well, okay, so
like,
there are some sites out there that have like the ROM like on the site, and you can just like actually play through the web browser, and that's interesting. Depending on the generation of the console, there's actually
right, but I mean this,
and I even think Archive
will download the ROM, and you can pull the ROM off your device and put it on the PC if you want. Like it is the ROM. It's not
yikes.
streamed.
Yeah, that's yikes.
So one of the things, if you look in their promotional graphic that's going past there, they actually show like in that little picnic basket, there's Devil May Cry and the
Grand Theft Auto,
GTA Chinatown Wars. That Chinatown Wars thing actually is the native Android app. They just deliver the ROM to you side loaded through this thing, and then it just launches. It sends you the APK file. So it's just like, wow, this is like a Where's monster here. Like,
yeah, that's concerning because it's just like, what else
this
are
is
they
like Hong
side-loading?
Kong don't give a shit. It's Chinese piracy at its most convenient.
Well, speaking of China, Roblox has been cleared for launch in China. Oddly enough, Mellified, talk about this, please.
Well, I think the thing that this story sort of brought up in my mind is the problem that Roblox has with its content management. Specifically, they do things the same way that YouTube and a lot of other services do, where you can post anything you want until enough people complain, then a human being goes and looks at it and decides if it needs to be taken down. And that works okay on services primarily aimed at adults, but when you have kids involved, it gets a little dicey, because that means that some number of kids have seen this inappropriate content before enough people report it that action is taken, and that there's obviously a lag there where it takes some time for the content moderators to get to it and take a look. So I really have a sort of moral issue with that. I think Roblox, it makes it even worse because they allow very similar names. Everything in Roblox is a world, so you can make your own game and upload that world to the servers. Other people can download it and play it, for those who aren't familiar.
I know exactly how we get this banned in China right now. We make
boy.
the Tiananmen Square world.
Well, absolutely, and that's going to get it that content pulled off at least. But the problem is that you can make stuff that has almost the identical name to big famous worlds that are very popular and trick people into downloading your stuff. So it's kind of this combination of, if I really want to be malicious, I can make a world that is inappropriate and upload it with a name that's similar to something that's popular and hope that I get enough hits to get in people's face, which just seems really gross to me, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been kind of leery about the Roblox stuff, especially since like the original news reports coming out about just some of the unfortunate things that people were doing with that.
Well, and
But
it ain't just Roblox. It was like Habbo Hotel. It's
yeah,
anything like the Lego Worlds Online. I heard that like a big portion of why Lego Worlds Online, they were just like, yeah, nah, scrap it. It was just like so filled with adults that wanted to exploit children that they were
yeah,
just like,
it's
yeah, this is not sustainable. We've created a
and
nightmare.
that's
Let's
sad
kill
though
it.
because and that's sad because it's just like I mean these things are really great ideas and really awesome for like kids and like like family friendly stuff where like parents can play games with their kids and like stuff that's really conducive for that, and then you get these perverts out here who just want to like exploit that, and that's
Yeah, well,
unfortunate.
it's things like game chat, right? Like
Right, yeah.
whenever you have just in-game chat and stuff, it's like the parent uh ideally you have the game as like an attention holder for the kids so that you can do something else, right? And then it turns out I have to sit there and monitor every second because of the predator level that apparently is in society, which
Yes.
we could fix with some bullets. But
Huh.
the the you know I'll just let that be what it is. But the level of that's out there, right? So anytime you make anything that is like a kid's thing, right? Like they made like that Hello Kitty online thing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
came
yeah, yeah.
from Japan, and then that also, right? So like anything that's kid centric just draws this like moths to a flame kind of problem. Um, but it becomes a thing where the parent has to be present all the time. So I feel like when Nintendo didn't okay, so Nintendo made friend code stuff a complete pain in the ass, right? Because you have to
Probably
basically
for a
like
reason.
right. And then we talked last week about how they made it such a pain in the ass to have voice chat in a game. You have to go to a separate app on a separate
Again,
device
probably for a reason.
for that reason. Exactly. And I'm saying maybe that's how they justify why they are so tone deaf about online
Well,
experience is because they're purposefully
I don't think they're
avoiding.
tone deaf per se. I do think though that so like my sister contacted me a year ago and was talking about like, hey, can you tell me about the Switch? Like I'm thinking about getting one for my kids, but like so that they don't like it, I'm not going to just say it's both of theirs. Like I'm going to get it and say it's mine and let them play on it. Like, tell me about it. And so I went over like, the fact that there is a mobile app, there's like a parental thing, you can set time limits of gameplay. You can do quite a bit of these things, which is really nice for, a parent who is wanting to engage actively in the content that their child is consuming, which I applauded my sister for. Um and then again this year, my brother contacted me and he was asking the same questions. And I was like, well, you should talk to our sister because she did the same thing last year. But and he went ahead and he got one this year for my nephew. And but like it does concern me when I think about these things, but I get why Nintendo has put a lot of these things in place, which is why when you have parents that are being responsible enough to be actively engaged in the content that their children are consuming, you put these measures in place on the console, but also let the adults have some measures too. So like if you are buying this as an adult, setting this up as an adult, like there should be some kind of way to like recognize, all right, this is an adult that's doing this, and if if someone ever finds out that a kid's trying to use like the making an adult account, then like they get banned or they get like
Right.
removed or
So that's a thought that I have had like as you were coming into this was like, okay, Nintendo made it a complete pain in the ass to have the friend code thing to where you almost physically need to know somebody to exchange a friend
right,
code.
and
Otherwise, you can't discover that
that's
person,
good,
right?
and that's
So
good for
yeah,
for
that is good.
children.
The other side of that, because we have like PlayStation, Xbox, the other ecosystems, even into PC, right? Um, because PCs are such game centric devices now, it would be very interesting to see Microsoft actually build in a parental control system for Windows user accounts.
They
because
kind
I
of
don't
do.
well, I
kind
don't
of.
have. It's like I don't have root access. I'm not an administrator if I'm a normal user,
Right.
but that doesn't pop up and say you're trying to add a friend in like Xbox, right? It's like somebody sent
you know
you a
what's
friend
interesting?
invite.
Hey, you know what's interesting about
a
that?
parent monitor this.
So Xbox and Mellified, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Xbox has been doing something a little bit differently, where instead of like doing friend requests now, I believe they're doing like you follow somebody, but the other person doesn't have to follow you back.
Correct. So if you're not mutual friends, there are things that are disabled.
Right. So it's just like someone can follow me, but if I don't have it set to like, open, then that person who's following me doesn't see the thing that I only have set to mutual friends. So that's the kind of nice thing about that, is because then you don't have to like accept friend requests. You just can follow somebody back, and then that makes you mutual friends and yada yada yada. So it's nice in that regard, because I've gotten a ton of people who just follow me, but like there's very few that I've like followed back. And I think that's an interesting way of doing it. But I think a cool thing that Nintendo could do with their account stuff is like, if you know how to set up the account online, that's where you can do like the adult portion of things, where like you can set things up through like a web access on like a computer somewhere, and then that way, because like the kid's not going to know how to like gain access to the online account and yada yada yada. So these are just like thoughts and ideas that I've had that I thought would be interesting. So
well, it's like we're in a generation now where the parents actually know as much, probably more than the kids.
They should. You're right.
Last generation, however, was like mom and dad that were 12 o'clock blinkers on the VCR, and we had to set that stuff.
Right.
So there was no way to hide it from us, because we were the sysadmin of the house.
I mean, I remember my dad holding out on a VCR until he got a DVD player, and when he got a DVD player is when Blu-rays were like all like in the hot. So it just was kind of funny. I just I can relate to that.
He's one step up from Amish. I get it.
Yeah, a little bit of a Luddite, but that's okay.
It's my man cave. No, it's the game barn.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I tell my dad, just like, through my service provider, I get access to HBO Max, and he's like, oh, well, like, can you like give me access to that? And I was like, well, HBO Max is kind of like a bit of a pain in the butt, because they're not on all like devices right now with that app. And so it's like, to watch it, you have to either have a very specific device or like, watch it on your phone or your computer. And he was wanting to get it because the new Wonder Woman movie is coming out on HBO Max soon. And there's actually some other pretty good shows on HBO Max that are actually really good too. But it just was kind of funny, because it's like, hey, you want to hook your dad up with the content. It's just like, all right, Dad.
Yeah, well, we're seeing a transformation in digital services. Well, for a variety of reasons, right? But like movie theaters are a dead dinosaur at this point. Like,
yeah, it's such a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah, COVID was like the meteor of doom for a lot of things. And I have controversial opinions about the motive for that, but we'll do that elsewhere. But just let it be noted, those who also have controversial opinions know what I'm talking about. So anyway, it murdered small business. It murdered anything that requires people to gather,
Right.
And I saw a meme. It was like a little old lady with her walker saying, we used to watch movies on a giant screen with 50 other people.
Right.
It's like, well, let's get you back to the home, Grandma. So it's like kids aren't going to believe it, but it accelerated the move to the living room thing, which people were doing.
Well, yeah, I was about to say people were doing that. Yeah.
We saw gimmicks shit like the IMAX theater. You can't get this at home. And then there was the 3D stuff where you don't want this at home. And
right? You know how quickly like people bounced off 3D TVs? Like 3D TVs like were like all of a sudden it was like the hot new thing, and then they're gone. Like it just But
it should have been capitalized on hugely for gaming though. Like the Xbox
Sure.
should have a built-in 3D
That's
mode
something-
that you
that's
just wear
something-
shutter glasses and kapow.
That's something that's interesting about Microsoft is they're not doing VR. I mean,
Not a
with PlayStation 4 doing like the PSVR, I am shocked that Xbox has not started moving in that direction with all of the really great things. Speaking of which, I just want to put this out there. Microsoft, you need to sponsor us because I will shell for you on this. Xbox Game Pass. I'm not kidding. Xbox Game Pass is like the best thing in gaming right now. You can get Xbox Game Pass Ultimate right now for $1, and when you buy it for $1 for a month, you get 2 months for free. You can get 3 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $1 right now. If you haven't tried it, go try it.
If you use promo code YIFOMATIC, then you don't get anything.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by them, but man, it is some of the best. Yeah,
I just want a promo code. Just once in my life,
yeah,
I want to
go.
do a show where I can where I can be like, and if you use code pickle, then you get something, right? Because
Right.
Sponsoring my show. But it never happens.
But here, one of these days. But here's the deal: Xbox Game Pass Ultimate has over 100 high quality games for your console, a PC, and you can play it on your Android mobile device where available. I'm reading right from the promotional thing here. All of the benefits of Xbox Live Gold, and you get an EA Play membership, all for one low monthly price. Like for $1, this is free promotions for you, Microsoft. Please contact us because I will literally play this every single week.
Okay, so I see the Xbox Game Pass mobile app to install your games wherever you are to your PC or console. What I'm surprised at, though, is that Xbox Game Pass doesn't have Android-specific applications that you also get on your phone.
You know what's interesting about that you bring that up is I'm really shocked because Steam also has an app, and I was like, Steam, you are like the gaming like mecca on PC right now. Like you are still the number one top dog on PC for getting games. You have a mobile app. Why do you not have like mobile versions of games like available through your mobile app, like through Android or iOS? Like why is this not a thing that is happening right now with you? Like that still surprised me.
Okay, so here's the giant problem in gaming right now, right? Because the Steam store has become like the Android mobile store, like the iPhone store.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Where
sure.
there's such an avalanche of trash that you can't find quality in the haystack, right? So if there was...
It's really hard, at least, yeah.
Let's say that we start a business, right? And we make an Android application that is Android Game Pass. And you pay us a subscription monthly, and then for that, we give you access to a roster of games that we curate, right? And then the makers of those games get their percentage of the monthly whatever, just like Microsoft Game Pass does, except that we don't have any control of the platform. We're just a rotating game of availability and discovery service. And if you're on the thing for a little while and then people want to continue playing the game because that you come on the platform, you stay for 60 days and then you're out, right? And we continuously churn through, but that gets your game in front of people in a very small selection, right? Like say we only do 10 games at a time or 20 games or whatever. Then it's gonna get seen because it's like a different storefront, but you pay say $1 a month and you have access to this roster of games and you might not have discovered them otherwise. So I don't understand why nobody else has done that kind of thing unless the actual store would have beef with it because you can't pay one guy to have access to another guy's product or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
somebody out there could do it. Just do it.
You know, I personally think that, because, so to kind of like close out this conversation here a little bit, I personally think, with the PC market, Epic came in and started up their new store as a direct competitor to Steam because, there was that whole debate about Steam's policies on taking percentages, right? They take a 30% cut, which is a pretty standard industry like cut when you look at like, iOS or Android and stuff like that even. But it doesn't mean that we'd like it, right? And so, Epic has come along, and people have had concerns about Epic and being potentially spyware, which I completely think is unjustifiable in my opinion. Even though I do not like Tencent, I'm not a fan of Tencent. I don't think it's that malicious, honestly. That's just my personal opinion, but I don't think places like Epic or EA or Ubisoft or GOG are going to be the ones that are going to be the threat to Steam. I think Steam is going to be unhindered by the efforts of these other stores, in my own opinion. What I do think is going to be the threat to Steam, and I think we're probably going to see it in 2021 being a major threat player to Steam, and Steam's going to have to make Valve's going to have to do something, is Microsoft and Game Pass. I think Microsoft, with their Game Pass, especially if Microsoft continues to iterate and improve upon their formula here, if they make a lot of their social stuff better, if they continue to improve their social stuff more, if they continue to do more of their crossplay stuff between PC and the console, I think for PC, because the fact of the matter is there's so much content with Xbox and Game Pass right now for both PC and Xbox. It is ridiculous, and at such a low cost of entry. This is, Mellified and I play games all the time together on Game Pass now, and he's on his Xbox, or just like on the Microsoft ecosystem at least. He's on his Xbox, I'm on PC. We're using the voice chat system through Microsoft. We're not even on Discord, and we're having a ball. We're having a really good time playing games. Yeah. And right, I don't want to speak. Yeah. I don't want to speak for you, yeah. But it's just I think it's in because when was the last time you used Steam Chat? Like, when was the last time you used Steam Voice Chat? When was the last time?
It's possible.
Right, exactly.
That's kind of a never.
Right.
Yeah.
When was the last time that you really were like excited to use the Steam overlay, or thought the Steam overlay was going to be beneficial? Or like when, are using like Steam forum, like I avoid Steam forums now because it's just, I feel like they're obnoxious. They're convoluted. They don't make a lot of sense, in my opinion. I mean, their game store has definitely been a mixed bag of improvements, not unimprovements, and then improvements again.
Well, it shocked me last week when you told me they had like a whole Discord kind of back end that's separated out per game and such in there, and it's like, wow, okay. And then like individual the curator system, which is still kind of like a near miss,
right? But
something.
It's so convoluted though. Like Steam's ecosystem has gotten so bloated that it's convoluted and it's not been streamlined or put together, and Valve is going to have to make serious and Valve's going to have to make serious efforts, I feel like, in order to stay relevant and competitive with what Microsoft is doing on a PC platform. Like, I know that Valve was trying to go with the whole Linux thing because Gabe was hating like the whole DirectX stuff, which I can't blame him for because, screw that. But like, because Vulkan is coming a long way, and Vulkan is doing some pretty awesome stuff technologically wise. But I just think that in the year 2021, we're probably going to see some really heavy competition between, in terms of who is taking up players' time on the PC, because with their ease of entry, I mean, they're snagging people in for $1 for 3 months, and you get a whiff of that. You get a taste of what you get for $1 for 3 months. I mean, I have my account all the way through like 2022 or 23 or something like that, and I can guarantee you, if it stays on this, I will easily continue to pay for it. So, those are my final thoughts, and I'll let you guys finish us out here. What do you got? What do you think about that?
We started out talking about like the whole theater situation, right? Where an HBO Max and your dad and whatnot. So I found it amazing that basically we're like a year of back pressure on movies that haven't been able to go to a theater. So
did you know there was a new Fast and Furious movie that was supposed to come out that didn't? I just Jesus.
No,
And they go to the moon or something. Like
No. That's not this one. That's going to be the one
had
after
Brad
this
Pitt
one.
in it, and it
No,
was Ad Astra.
it was like Fast and Furious 9 or something like that, and it had to deal with like Vin Diesel's brother, who was played by John Cena, and it was like, and like I remember I went back and I was looking at the trailers that were supposed to be for movies coming out in 2020, and I was like, oh yeah, there was a Fast and Furious movie that was supposed to come out that didn't, and then they're supposed to be making another one where they go to the moon or something, like, I don't know.
Yeah, like the only two movies I've given a shit about all year was Godzilla King Kong was supposed to come out,
and Dune,
right?
Yeah.
And Dune, I really hope that they just hold on to Dune until they really can do it in a theater. I want to actually see that, like, not on
IMAX
television.
I want to go to the IMAX for that.
Large. But anyways, so I found it very interesting that with a year's worth, then they finally said, well, screw it. And they just like ejected all the movies from 2020 into HBO Max in one explosion of movies, apparently.
Either that, or I think Amazon, because I think Amazon's going to be picking up the Bond movie.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, it was just like, I saw somebody put out a tweet and it was like, here's a list of all the movies that, 2020, all on HBO Max right now. And it was just like, wow, that was a decisive and, kind of like all at once move. Not like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to trickle these out. It's just like, nope, here it is. But anyway, yeah, society has changed.
Well, I think as much as things have changed, they have remained the same. I want to see more games with cross play, cross progression. I am tired of having my Mortal Kombat 11 vault unlocks specific to PC, Switch, and Xbox. I am tired of redoing the same parts of games because game developers can't get it through their thick heads that, I will buy the game twice or 3 times if I have to, but I want all my stuff to be synced, and we have that technology. Make it happen. So yeah, you'd think with everybody locked up, we see some forward movement on these things. I'm keep my fingers crossed.
You know what blew my mind, right, is with the PlayStation 5, this is a Sony specific issue. If you own a PlayStation 4, and let's say you bought the Spider-Man game, right, and you're going to get a PlayStation 5, whatever. I bought the Spider-Man game. It's the PlayStation 4 and 5 version. So I'm covered, right? Like when I get that 5, I've already got the game. But I have progression in the time that I've been playing it while I'm waiting to get a 5. And then I get my 5. First off, they made it like super muddy to get the PlayStation 5 to download the PlayStation 5 version.
Yep.
If you have already installed the PlayStation 4 version, because now that's the dominant version in your account. The other thing is, with a lot of games, from what I've heard, because there was like some mass bitching about it on the Giant Bomb podcast, where if I have it on the PlayStation 4, then I go to the PlayStation 5, I have to download for whatever game the PlayStation 4 version of the game and run it in back compatible mode to save my achievement history and my game saves into the 5. And then I uninstall the game and I can install the PlayStation 5 version, and then it will import. So the PlayStation 5 version of a game has to import the save local. It can't just grab it from the cloud where it already freaking exists anyway.
Which is insane and stupid.
Yeah.
Right. And this is just like another mind-blowing, like, how did you do that, Japan? Like, why is it always Japan?
Why does it have to be this hard?
It's this obtuse shit, like friend codes. Wow. Yeah. So, okay, cool. Xbox, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, my pet peeve with the PlayStation ecosystem is that even today, you have a limit on size for your save games in the cloud, and only your primary system will auto upload to the cloud. If you have multiple PlayStation 4s, your secondary ones don't upload your saves automatically, and there's no way to enable it. It just doesn't do it.
I think we're going to get to the point where the console space becomes so constrained, even with multi-terabyte drives, because of the 8K textures that will be coming out for no reason. Then they force you to have it. It's like, I never bought any DLC for this game, yet on my hard drive I have all the DLC because I have
that is something that
right.
That is something that bugs me.
Yeah, and it's a huge deal on consoles because on a PC I have an overkill of hard drive space usually, but on a console it's like you're hard limited. That's it. So and whenever the console next gen came out, that's when we saw things like with Call of Duty where they then suddenly made certain chunks of the game optional, and it's like, I can remove 70 gigs of content from here once I'm done with it, right? So I'm wondering, do we get to the point where you don't install a whole game, you just install the level that you're on in the next level, and then while you're playing the next level it deletes the previous one and streams down the next one? Right. So it's always got just in time content you don't have to wait for, but we don't have to throw the entire asset load of this game into the console at once because the game is bigger than the console at that point.
And WoW was doing that 10 years ago for new installs of the game, right? They would stream in just enough to get you started in the starting area and then load in the rest of the game in the background. Now they never got rid of stuff, to your point, but similar concept. And certainly the some of the games will ask you, do you want to play multiplayer or single player first? And they will prioritize the chunks of the game for either single or multi.
Yeah. Where it could say, do you want to play multiplayer and never single player? And then it's like, we didn't just prioritize it, we omitted the single player until you want it.
And Xbox gives you that option if the developers have sort of set it up that way, where they have a single player package and a multiplayer package, which is really nice.
I feel the future is that developers will have to do that.
Halo MCC does that, right? So like you can install like the single player campaign for any of the games in there, or you could just do like, I want multiplayer from Halo 2 and Halo 3 and Reach, and that's it, because those are the only ones I care about.
Okay, but on PC,
and you can do it on PC.
Do you want to install Master Chief? Okay,
no,
because I didn't see an option.
They've changed.
I wanted
to
play Halo 4.
Hold on a second. Okay. They've changed it. So like in Steam, actually, if you right click on it, if you right click on Halo MCC in Steam, I learned this the other day because I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but you can go to, I think, like manage and go to browse local files. No, not browse local files. That's stupid. It's manage and go in properties. Or right click and just go to properties. There's actually a DLC tab on the right hand side when you go to properties, and you can just check mark and uncheck mark the Halo stuff that you want. I think that's rather nuts. So like I said, like if you go into on Steam, just right click and go to properties, and then on the DLC tab at the right, you can just like uncheck mark or check mark what you want. And that's pretty good. So, or you can launch it and then download and install what you want to through the game, but I think that's a little too much. Like I don't want to launch the game and play it. I want to just like download it so I can play it later.
Yeah, and the Microsoft Flight Simulator on PC has been getting a lot of complaints for having an in-game download for the content, even when you patch it through other means, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential here. I think there's some issues as well. If I have the same texture in Halo 3 and Halo 4, and I have them both installed, it's not necessarily smart enough to deduplicate that, right? That's one of the issues we have. We also have, because people complain about loading time, on the consoles, the old PS4, Xbox One generation consoles had a terrible CPU, very, very slow. So uncompressing things was actually fairly expensive. So the solution that the game developers came up with was, well, screw it. We'll just leave the stuff uncompressed, because then we don't have to pay the decompression penalty going to the CPU and then copying the resulting uncompressed asset into the GPU. So one of the like headline optimizations that they made with the newest generation consoles, the Series X and the PS5, is, guess what, guys? We'll let you decompress in the GPU.
That's
so now
bonkers.
So now you just stream the asset directly into the GPU decompresses it, and Bob's your uncle. But the reason that we have 200 gig installs of Call of Duty is because there's like 5 uncompressed copies of the texture sitting in different parts of the game.
Yeah,
which only exacerbates when you get to an 8K texture that's like, hundreds of megs per texture or whatever.
Well, the other thing they'll do is multi-part textures, where the texture actually has multiple things embedded in it, and they only use parts of it for specific things in the game. So those are much bigger because it's more efficient to load one large asset versus a bunch of little ones. And so you have issues like that where you're sucking up all this GPU memory because it was previously on the old consoles inefficient to transfer this stuff. Yeah. They've optimized for the old consoles. Now that we have new consoles, it's going to take a while, but I think it's going to actually advance the state of game engines pretty significantly, because the problem is, quite frankly, the PC gets held back in a lot of cases by these limitations.
Yeah. So here's the thing I would propose to the console creator, right, is they build in deduplication at block level of storage. And then you can install whatever the hell you want. But if storage blocks of game A are the same as storage blocks of game B, it only has one copy of that, and both games will reference that block. And you can do that with inode pointers. Just saying, storage guy. But yeah, that would solve your storage problem with SSDs on consoles like overnight.
Well, and the other one is
all those textures would auto dedupe as well for all legacy games.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be fantastic. I think the other one that I've been thinking about is on the Series consoles. Series games have to be on the fast SSD storage, the internal storage typically. But that's very limited resource to your point, Jim. And so while on the Xbox right now, I can transfer those games to an external drive, but I can't play them. So I have to do this dance where I delete stuff, move stuff, copy stuff around, and I'm doing storage management just to play my game.
So basically, you're saving yourself the download and the like bandwidth problem.
Yep.
But yeah.
And so my thought was, well, let me set an option where nothing gets installed to internal storage. Internal storage is a 1 terabyte SSD cache for whatever external storage I have. And if I go play a game, it starts streaming it into memory, but also into internal storage. Okay, and then
we use internal storage as a cache of the last X number of things read from the storage, so that the second time you need to load it, it's instant.
Exactly. And stream it in the background, right? If I loaded up Halo, then start copying all of Halo into the internal storage, because the odds are I'm going to need it.
And that way, that's how tiered enterprise storage worked. In that gap where we still had spinning slow disks, but SSDs were an incredibly expensive new thing. So you would have 10% of your storage in the expensive stuff. And that way your data that was more active would tier itself into the faster storage just by access date and how many times. And
that's exactly where I got that idea, was like having worked in big boy databases and things with real storage. Like, these concepts are out there, so it's just a matter of time until we apply them to the console space, I suspect. And that's easy to do in software. To your point, the deduplication is a background thread that just runs through and looks for opportunities to, dedupe stuff. And similarly, doing a streaming cache would be a software, process. And they've got enough cores.
Yeah.
They've got the hardware to do it.
So whenever consoles need to sit and cook a shader cache or whatever, right? Do they do that GPU size or side, or is it like on PC where it's like it hammers my CPU to do it for some reason when the GPU would be hella faster? But Call of Duty doesn't do it.
Typically, they're baked in. This is the advantage of having 4 or 5 models of console versus a PC where there's an infinite variety of hardware, right?
Yeah, but if you got 5 models of Xbox, do I have to have 5 copies of the shader cache, or is one serves all?
I believe because they're different GPUs, it'll download the shader the pre-comped shader cache that it needs, but I'm not 100% positive on that, to be fair.
Well,
we got super nerdy there at the end, but I think
no kidding.
I think we can probably call it a show at this point.
Yeah,
that's what you get when you have like enterprise computing gamer pros.
I think all three of us work in some pretty high level tech in some form or fashion. So it's just that we kind of think about these things on a frequent basis. But this has been a really great episode, guys. I really want to appreciate everybody for listening. If you've made it this far, please go check out gilded.otherworlds.gg to keep the conversation going. That's where we're at. Of course, you can get this podcast wherever you get podcasts. We're on iTunes. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify. Of course, you can find us at otherworlds.gg for the actual podcast itself, www. Catch us next time. We do this show. We record every other week at the moment, so we are on a every other week kind of schedule. So that's where we're at. Hopefully we can ramp things up and do them more frequently, but so far we don't have any shortage of topics to talk about or content to talk about. So anyway, I want to thank my co-hosts for partying along with me today and for starting a half an hour early since I have some scheduling weirdness on this weekend. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.